Welcome to this deep dive. We've got a really interesting source here today, surviving a tsunami, testing my survival skills.
Right, and our job is basically to pull out the key stuff for you.
Exactly. We want to give you a fast, solid understanding of how to prepare for, well, one of the scariest things nature can throw at us.
And this source is great because it mixes the science and the history with some really practical, hands-on advice,
Hmm.
like testing yourself.
Yeah, it makes it feel more doable. So we're aiming to cut through to what matters, understanding the threat, spotting the signs, and knowing what you can actually do now.
Especially if you live near the coast or even just visit.
Okay, let's jump in. The sheer power.
Hmm.
What does the source emphasize first?
Well, it hits you right away with the potential scale. We're talking cities flattened in minutes.
Wow, and it's
Yeah.
mostly these huge undersea earthquakes causing it.
Yeah, massive shifts in the ocean floor. They just displace incredible amounts of water
And the speed is terrifying too, right? Something like 500 miles per hour?
in the deep ocean. Yeah, like a jet. But the real danger, the source points out, is when they reach the coast.
Ah, okay. What happens then?
They slow down, but all that energy gets compressed. It has nowhere to go but up.
Piling up into those massive waves.
Exactly. The source mentions heights over 100 feet sometimes, pushing water miles inland. That's the devastating part.
And NRA says, what, about 60 minor ones a year globally?
Roughly, yeah. Most aren't catastrophic, thankfully, but it's the big ones. They're just history-changing events.
The source gives examples, doesn't it? The 2004 Indian Ocean one.
Oh, yeah. Over 230,000 deaths. 1.7 million people displaced across 14 countries, triggered by that huge 9.1 quake.
Staggering numbers. And then Japan in 2011.
The Tsushuka tsunami, again, devastating. Over 15,000 deaths, huge displacement, and then the Fukushima disaster on top of it all.
The cost, $360 billion.
An unbelievable economic hit. And these really highlight the vulnerability, especially in places like the Pacific Ring of Fire.
It's just constant tectonic activity there.
Pretty much. And the human cost, loss, displacement, the economic struggle afterwards, it lasts for years.
Okay, so the power is clear. Let's talk about the science a bit more. How exactly does that earthquake translate into a wave?
So about 80% come from these undersea quakes, specifically where tectonic plates meet, like the Cascadia Zone off the U.S. West Coast, or the Sunda Trench where the 2004 quake happened.
Right, those subduction zones.
Exactly. One plate slides under another, and if there's a sudden slick, a big vertical movement.
It shoves the whole column of water above it.
Precisely. Lifts it or drops it. Imagine doing that to the floor of a giant bathtub. That's the kind of disturbance, but on an ocean scale. It sends waves out in all directions.
And that's why they're so different from, like, normal beach waves from wind.
Totally different. Wind waves are just surface deep. Tsunami energy goes right through the entire water column, floor to surface.
Which means they can travel huge distances.
Thousands of miles across entire oceans, and they lose surprisingly little energy doing it.
That's the key then. They just keep going.
Yeah, and their wavelength, the distance between crests, is enormous. Hundreds of miles compared to maybe a few hundred meters for a wind wave. It carries so much more energy.
Okay, so this long, deep wave is racing across the ocean. What happens when it finally hits the shallower water near land?
Right, so the front of the wave hits the shallow seabed and starts to slow down. But the back of the wave is still moving fast in deeper water.
So it catches up.
It catches up, yeah. The wave gets squashed horizontally and grows vertically, just piles up.
Into that towering wall.
Into that wall. The source mentions an extreme case, Lituya Bay in Alaska, 1958. A landslide caused a wave that ran up the hill opposite to 1,720 feet.
Unbelievable. That was a landslide, though, not an earthquake.
Right, much rarer, but shows the potential for massive local waves.
Okay, terrifying power, fascinating science. But maybe the most crucial thing, those warning signs. The source says you might only have, what, 10 to 30 minutes?
Yeah, this is absolutely critical for survival. Knowing these signs could be everything.
First one mentioned is the ocean pulling back suddenly.
The sudden withdrawal, it's classic. The water retreats way, way out, exposing the seabed, much further than a normal low tide, and fast.
That's the trough of the wave arriving first.
Exactly. If you see that, don't wait, don't watch. Move inland, uphill, immediately.
What else? Strange water behavior?
Yeah, like weird currents, whirlpools maybe, even bubbling water. It can signal something big happening offshore.
And noises, like a roar.
People often describe it like a freight train or a jet engine sound. Gets louder fast. That's the wave itself approaching.
And the most obvious one, if you're close enough.
The earthquake itself. If you're near the coast and feel strong shaking, especially shaking that makes it hard to stand up, That is your warning.
Don't wait for sirens or anything else.
Don't wait, just go. Move to high ground immediately.
The source uses that 2004 tsunami again, not just for the devastation, but for the lessons learned.
Absolutely. It was a wake-up call for many regions. The source tells this story about a family in Thailand.
The one that survived.
Yet they heard a warning on the radio, they actually listened, and they evacuated uphill. Their village was wiped out, but they survived because they acted on the warning.
It just shows how vital warnings in education are.
Totally. And huge improvements came after that, like the Indian Ocean tsunami warning system, buoys, sensors, and places like Japan and Chile. They already had systems, but they ramped up drills and public education even more. That stuff saves lives.
Okay, so let's shift to the practical side. The source frames preparedness like a survival challenge, breaking it into steps.
Which is a really good way to think about it. Makes it less abstract, more like skills you can build.
So, step 1, know your risk. What does that involve?
It means doing a bit of research, checking out hazard maps. NOAA has them. Your local emergency agency should too.
To see if you're actually in a flood zone.
Exactly. See the potential inundation areas, find out where the safe evacuation routes are. The source mentions the U.S. West Coast, Alaska, Hawaii being higher risk.
Because of those subduction zones.
Right. But the key is knowing your specific location. Is your home in a zone? Your work? Your kid's school? The simulation in the source found being within 2 miles of the coast meant needing a really quick plan.
Which leads straight to step 2. Develop an evacuation plan.
This is your lifeline, basically.
Right.
The simulation participant mapped out their route to the nearest high ground, a hill 100 feet up, about a 15-minute run.
And practicing is key.
Crucial. Time is so limited. You need to know the route instinctively. Experts generally say aim for at least 100 feet elevation or maybe a mile inland.
But check local advice.
Definitely check local guidance. It varies. And think about backups.
Alternative routes?
Yeah, roads might be blocked, damaged. Have a plan B, maybe even plan C. And a family plan. Where do you meet if you get separated? How do you try to communicate? Cell service will likely be out.
And the go bag. Can't forget that.
Nope. Essentials ready to grab. Water, food, first aid, flashlight, whistle. Enough for 72 hours at least.
Okay, step 3. Learn the warning signs. We covered those, but the simulation involved practicing the response.
Yeah, imagining seeing the ocean withdraw and then actually practicing the evacuation sprint. Trying to do it within that maybe 10-minute window before the wave hits.
So it becomes muscle memory.
Exactly. Relying on natural signs, the shaking, the roar, the water is vital if official alerts don't come first or aren't available.
Which links to step 4. Staying informed via official channels.
These systems are designed to be fast. The tsunami warning centers get alerts out. The source mentions subscribing to text alerts, using apps.
Like MyShake for earthquake alerts?
Things like that, yeah. And knowing where community sirens are if you have them.
Yeah.
Participating in drills if your community runs them like they do in Oregon or Japan makes a huge difference.
And the final step? Step 5. Build community resilience.
Right, because survival isn't just you. It's about your neighbors, your community. The source talks about connecting with people, maybe neighborhood watch groups, sharing info, knowing where community shelters are.
Usually schools or churches on high ground?
Often, yeah. And knowing about local recovery plans, too, for debris cleanup, mental health support afterwards. It's all part of resilience.
The reflections in the source after doing that simulated challenge sound quite powerful.
Yeah, the participant said it was really eye-opening. Physically tough, mentally stressful. It drove home the need for fitness, for calm decision-making under pressure.
And the potential for panic if you don't have a plan.
Absolutely. It just reinforces why preparation is so important. And it gives you a real respect for coastal communities who live with this possibility.
It also highlighted real-world complications, didn't it? Crowds, debris.
Exactly. Evacuating isn't just a straight run, usually. There are obstacles, maybe family or pets to worry about. Regular practice becomes even more vital when you factor that in.
And beyond the immediate survival, the broader impacts are huge.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Economically, infrastructure damage, fishing, tourism wiped out, massive rebuilding costs, environmentally saltwater intrusion ruining farmland, socially displacement, trauma, the strain on support systems.
So the source boils it all down to some clear action steps for protection.
Yep. First, make that plan. Map your routes, practice them.
Second, stay alert, know the natural signs, get official alerts.
Third, prepare supplies. Get that go bag ready, 72 hours minimum.
Fourth, support mitigation efforts in your community. Seawalls, maybe mangrove restoration.
Things that can lessen the impact. And finally, fifth, educate others. Share this knowledge. Build that community resilience together.
So pulling it all together from this source, we've looked at the science, the immense risks, but also the very concrete steps you can take.
And the core message seems really clear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Understanding the threat, having that plan, practicing it. It's not just theoretical. It can literally be the difference.
Yeah.
That story from Thailand proves it.
Yeah. Given how fast and unpredictable these events are, it really underscores the power of knowing what to do and acting decisively. Knowledge and quick action.
So maybe here's the final thought to leave everyone with. If that warning comes, and you have maybe only 10, 20, 30 minutes, how ready are you, really, right now? What's the single most important first step you can take after hearing this to be better prepared?